gratitude is such an equalizer to those feelings of, I don't deserve this, to, wow, someone gave me this opportunity. Someone gave me a chance. They believed in me. They invested in me. And now I'm here. How can I take this feeling of gratitude and apply it to my team members and making sure I'm building them up, not only with words that affirm them, but also with projects and work and I like to say, and specificity around those words of affirmation so that they know exactly what it is that they're doing really well.
Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Dr. Shafer of Talks with Dr. Shafer. I'm a physician, mom, life coach, musician, author, publisher, and I am passionate about storytelling as a tool to help you reclaim your story and build your most beautiful future. And today, I'm so excited to share the story and the mission of a wonderful woman who's here to talk to us today. Her name is Kirsten Ramos, and she is an entrepreneur, the founder of Elevate Performance Solutions, and she is a fellow podcaster herself. She is a host of the Savvy Session podcast, and she's here to talk today with us about not only her story, but how it has led her to become a champion for empathetic leadership and how to teach that to businesses. Kirsten, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Shafer. It's such a pleasure to be on your show and with your audience today.
Thank you so much for spending the time and educating us about what you do. First off, we want to learn more about you. Tell us the story of how you became someone interested in teaching leadership.
It's one of those things where I feel like no one says, "Oh, I went to school to become a coach or a consultant." Probably now there are programs within universities that have that, but when I was in school, they did not teach that. So what I did is I went into college with an English and communications studies focus. So it's one of those majors where you can do anything or you can do nothing. And I came out of college in the public relations realm. And I did that for a couple years and realized this isn't really my passion. I felt like it was very cutthroat and calling newspapers. Yes, that was back in the day when you had to pitch your story to newspaper editors. Uh, and I didn't feel that passion. So I went into retail management and found that, oh, I loved working with people and helping women feel their best and look their best. And it was a wonderful experience. But I was recently married and decided I really want more of the 9 to 5. And so I kind of fell into the learning and development space. And that was about 18 years ago. And I worked my way up through the logistics of learning and development. So making sure I collated all the materials for someone else to facilitate a class. And then I realized, oh, I kind of want to be in front of this classroom. I want to have an opportunity to really be in front of people and teach and train and develop them. So I morphed my career into that, worked my way up and through to leading learning and development for an advertising technology firm, which I adored. It was one of those post startup companies. You knew everyone. It was big enough that you were really viable, yet small enough where you felt like, I know where these people are coming from. And one of the things I noticed there was the ability to try new things and fail. And I loved that. Well, all good things must come to an end. And that organization was purchased by a really large company. And I noticed how the culture started to shift. The large company wasn't laying anyone off. They wanted us. They said, great, we're so glad you're here. But by the way, you can't have meetings with that person anymore. You need to clear it with me first. And I noticed a lot of the leaders of the organization didn't have the focus of working with people or developing people. And so I made the maybe cavalier decision to leave and go out on my own. And that was 8 years ago last month. So I've been on my own with Elevate for 8 years now, and I haven't looked back because I have the ability to really work with the types of clients that are those small to mid-sized post startup organizations and help them develop empathetic leaders. And I like to say without being a doormat. So there's empathy, but then there's also some boundary setting that I like to do. So that's a little bit about the journey on how I came to be where I am today.
That's beautiful. I love the things that you touched on there. And I love this jumping off point of kind of the meat of the matter of what you do when you're working with
Yeah,
businesses on leadership, because leaders aren't born, they're created, right? We
indeed.
have to learn how to be a good leader. And sometimes the things that make us seek leadership are not necessarily the things that make us great leaders. We need to learn those skills in addition to the things that kind of got us to the head of the pack. Now I'm here. How do I get my flock to follow me? Right? If it's that sort of situation, because maybe the skills that got me there are not the skills that are going to get everyone around me to trust me and to trust me with this purpose that we all have together, that we are all working for. So, thinking about how do you, when you're coming into a situation where maybe someone had that, that wolf mentality to get up at the front of the pack, but now they are in a situation where, like you said, they're not able to assimilate into the culture. They're trying to just push a different culture on to the people that they're trying to work with, and it's not working. So if you come into a situation like that, what's the first thing you're going to do with that company?
I think the first thing I like to do is some observations and do some meeting with different people. If a company is game and will allow it, I like to do 360 reviews so that I'm not only talking to the leader and finding out what they want to accomplish within a coaching or a consulting mentality. I want to find out how their supervisors feel about them. And I want to find out how their direct reports feel about them, if they have any. A lot of times, what I notice, and to your point, is that people are promoted into leadership roles or into management roles because they have that wolf mentality, because they're the best at what they do. And that, to your point again, does not translate into you're going to be the best manager or supervisor. And so, a lot of times, there has to be a little bit of soul searching within the individual as well. And I talk to whomever is the client contact to say, is there an opportunity for this person to go back if they determine that management is not for them? And
Mm,
in some cases, in fact, many cases, there is. And in other cases, it's more like, oh, well, we filled that spot. So we really need this person to succeed in this role. And both of those scenarios are okay. But what I like to find out is, does this person really want to grow and develop others? What I find is oftentimes it's not that they don't like their colleagues that are now their direct reports. It's that they just wanted more money, a higher title.
mm.
And in many corporations or organizations, in order to keep climbing the proverbial ladder, you have to start managing people. And so it doesn't leave a lot of room for people that are just great at their craft and
Mm.
want to keep excelling at their craft as opposed to becoming a manager of people.
That's really interesting. And you know what it causes for me internally? It gives me empathy for these people who are excellent at their craft, who are wanting to become, wanting to climb that ladder, go
Yep.
to the next rung. They have been there for 10 years. They want to make more money, right? They're a senior at their job. I mean, that all makes sense. But they do also need to be open and willing to take on the responsibilities of that position.
Indeed.
And so you come in, how do you make that determination? Because, we all know that we need buy-in for a mindset shift, right?
We do.
How do you work with companies for that to be successful? I think that's good advice for everyone when we're trying to have these conversations where we know that it's not a war of information, it's a war of the minds. Like we need a mindset shift for us to move forward. How do you try to test the waters for if that can happen, and if it can, move forward?
Well, I think, with that mindset, if I'm working with an individual that is not wanting to engage with whatever, I use the word homework, whatever homework outside of our coaching that I'm doing, if they come back to the next session and say, oh, yeah, that really wasn't going to work this week because we were really busy. We needed to get this latest release out, or we needed to do whatever it is they need to do, then that tells me that one, okay, yes, they're very busy, but they may not be in the right mindset. And my approach is that I'm very direct. Part of empathy that I think a lot of people don't realize is that you can be empathetic and still be direct and not sugarcoat something. So I will point blank ask the question, why did you feel that this assignment that we discussed and we agreed to was not important in the, usually it's 2 weeks, in the two
Mhm.
weeks you had before this next session? And I just
Mhm.
pause and I wait for them to respond. A lot of times it's, whoa, uh, kind of, I didn't realize that I was going to be called out on this. And it's not that
Mm.
I like to say it, I don't want to call them out. I want to call them back in to let
Mhm.
them know this is important. This is your growth. This is your development. I get paid regardless. I'd like to see some success with that individual because it bodes well for both of us.
Exactly. I love that. And what do you find? I'm curious to know in your experience what the success rate, because I think when you phrase it as such and you help someone understand it's an investment in them, not in you, right? You're going to be paid either way. You're doing your job, but hey, I'd love you to get something out of this. How successful is that in general with kind of creating that little bit of a shock to the system so that people open up?
It's very successful. One, if someone's receiving coaching, it's a gift. Your company, I tell them, your company's investing in you. They wouldn't bring me in if they didn't believe you could do this. That said, oftentimes when a company engages with me, it's because they're seeing that something does need to shift. A
Mm.
mindset needs to shift, productivity needs to shift, more empathy needs to be, seen through that leader, whatever it may be. What's great is that when they do participate in the coaching and put some, what I like to say is things they say, oh, I knew that. I knew I should be doing that. It's not that I'm telling them anything that they don't already know. It's just providing them with some different ways of speaking or different ways of handling a situation that they didn't think of initially. And when
Mhm.
that happens, the success rate increases because they're bought into it, even though the company's already bought into it. The individual is, and they start to see that the team is more cohesive. They're getting more out of their team members, and they're able to have that productivity that the organization wants without burning anyone out.
I love that. And in your work, do you see a lot of burnout when you're coming? I have an assumption as to the answer, as dangerous as those are. But when you're being called to help these businesses, like many of us who do business coaching, are when you come in, are you already seeing the beginnings or the middle or even, heaven forbid, the end stages of burnout? And that's really why we're having this disconnect between leadership and employees.
Yes. Yes
Yeah.
to all of it. Depending, to your point, it could be whatever stage that burnout is in. And it's interesting, Dr. Shafer, because a lot of times the person that I'm coaching, or even if it's not a coaching engagement, I've been brought in to facilitate a learning and development program for an organization, inevitably, I will have managers tell me, I'd love to delegate more. I know you're doing this class on delegating and having accountability, but my people are burned out. And I
Mm,
recognize that in them. And so, as a good leader, I don't want to put more on their plate. And oftentimes, I tell the leaders, have you asked them? Because,
mm,
and I caution them, I said, if you thought this was something that they are ready for from a delegation standpoint, without asking them if they'd like to take it on and already making the decision they can't take it on, you may be taking away a challenging yet fun or growth opportunity for your team member without realizing it. So I like to say, ask the question first, even if you feel the team is really strapped for time. Ask the question. Maybe it's something where we can delegate something to someone else that is even a more junior employee that can give them an opportunity.
yeah. And you know, what makes me think when you hear, well, I don't want to do that. I haven't asked them, but I know they can't. That's too much for them. When you look at burnout and the things that we consider when we're actually working with the employees that are burned out, right? When we're
Yep.
working with the people that are essentially having a moral injury because they lack autonomy or they lack equity, whatever it is that they feel is missing, and it may be different for every member of the team. Already you hit on one. You hit on a leader who's not necessarily allowing the autonomy of decision making for the
Yes.
team member for something that really, given the opportunity, it may hit them as more work because maybe it hits the leader as more work for them. But realistically for them, it's, oh my goodness, you want to invest in me and my learning and help me. Basically,
Mhm.
I'm digging, I've got this tool and it's basically digging me deeper into this hole. You want to give me a new tool that's going to get me out of this? Thank you so much. I feel invested
Yes.
in.
And what I find too is that a lot of times it's not even that the leader thinks they can't handle it. It's more
Mm,
that they can't handle it with their current workload. And it's more that I'll just keep doing it. And I like to tell the leaders, is this something where you just don't want to let it go because you know how to do it, you've been doing it, you're great at it? Or is this truly that it's not the right time to let it go? But having that conversation, a lot of times leaders find, oh, I did ask that person, and guess what? They said, thank you so much. I will work, longer or harder. I don't want to, I don't like to say, hey, more hours equals more output, because it doesn't all the
right.
time. But sometimes people will say, I will work a little bit longer because this is the project that I've been waiting for.
Yeah, absolutely. From my personal experience, the first time I ever took leadership training was when I was in a leadership position at a hospital. And, it was not a part of the day. It was something we would come in at night to do. But physicians, we're kind of a unique breed where we're kind of used to, okay, I'll be wherever you tell me. Like, could there at least be pizza? Okay, I'm in, that's all the buy-in I need.
Right? I mean,
But
pizza, all of us get pizza. That's fine. We'll do anything.
It's true. It's true. Yeah, I think it's a holdover from our residency and medical school training. Will there be
Sure.
a little, like a tiny slice of free food there? I guess we'll come and spend our evening there. But then when you do these things that are maybe outside of your daily routine and you learn these nuggets that are about business, but I think so much of it just boils down to our thought processes and our mindset, how we're interacting with the people in our business, because at the end of the day, it's about people and it's about
Yes.
relationships. Everything is. That's where the real work happens. And that's not just going to help you as a member of that job, of that position, but it may also spill over into your relationships outside of work in a positive way.
I completely agree. And I've seen that as far as coaching clients that I've had for quite a while. They'll even update me to say like, "Wow, I actually took these tools and utilized it with my spouse or with my partner.
Mm.
And I, I, it worked there too. And it's more like, yes, communication, a beautiful thing.
Yes, I love it. And I think it's such a valuable service that you're providing to help people become more empathetic leaders and then to navigate changes in the dynamic of the workplace, which is something else that's really important part of what you're doing.
Yes. Well, and I'm glad you brought that up because, we a lot of us like to say the only change or the only constant in the world is change, uh, because our world is changing and evolving all the time with technology, with everything. And what I help clients do with navigating change is to understand that mindset, there's different ways that people think about change. Some people look at change and say, this is great. This gives me the chance to try new things. Yes, it's going to be a little painful, but we're going to develop these systems and wow, what a learning experience. I would say the majority of people don't look at it that way and they say, oh my goodness, they're, why is this happening to me? I've done nothing wrong. Everything was going so well. I understand the way we do things right now. Why do we need to go and change this? Or they're even saying this will never work. I've seen change. They try to implement change and it doesn't work, and we're gonna end up going back to the way things were. So I don't even want to get on board with it.
Mm.
So we see some different personalities, if you will, but not real personalities, just more characters, I should say,
Mm.
when we're dealing with change and helping managers understand you're going to see these characters. And it's best to not say, okay, I need you all to get on board with this change. We're doing it. Here's how we're going to do it. Let's move. It's better
Mhm.
to pull everybody together and say, hey, this change is happening. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What are you excited about? What terrifies you? What are some solutions that some of you have already taken, maybe in the past? Maybe they've been at a different organization that went through a similar change. It's more of having those open conversations and dialogue so that it's not a, hey, we're doing this, get on board or get off the bus. It's
Mm.
more of that, we're in this together, let's talk through this. And then also, what can I provide you as your manager?
I love
You
that.
know,
And
yes, like as a way to support you.
I love that because, that authoritarian management style, I'm not certain that it ever worked with regards to productivity and efficacy, right? Maybe people at a different time in history, they'd go along to get along, but were they really that productive if they were that unhappy because of this very authoritarian management style? Whereas when you, instead of saying, you need to get on board or get off the ship, this is
Yep.
on or off, you are with us or you are against us. When someone's saying, giving the pushback of, I don't think this isn't going to work. It didn't work last time. The easiest thing would be to ask a question then. Tell me about that. What didn't work last time? What did you experience?
Yes.
Leaning into their concerns instead of pushing back, kind of with a how dare you question. Because leaning in, not only does it bridge the two of you, but you can get some excellent information that's going to tell you what didn't work last time so we don't repeat that. So history doesn't repeat itself for this company.
Absolutely. And I love that you said that because I think questions are such a powerful way of garnering information, but also creating that connection that you mentioned. Because if I'm if I'm that authoritarian leader and I say, get on board or else, eh, the problem with that is that I clearly don't care how you feel. Or
Mm,
that's the perception that is being told to those team members. But by asking those questions, it opens you up and it lets people know, ooh, you asked a question about something I told you. You're invested in hearing my answer. And that makes me feel good. So I think there's, that great info gathering, but also that trust building amongst team members and then with their supervisor.
Absolutely. And that team building and trust, you want to have a highly effective, successful company. That has to be there. That has to be a part of the equation. Otherwise, it doesn't add up to what you're trying to create. You have to put the effort in to create that environment for people, for them to really thrive and be, at that 99 percentile. Okay, well, we're going to have to create that. That's not going to happen magically. No matter how wonderful our product is or our purpose is, like, this has to be a great place to work too for our team members.
Yep. I
Yeah.
completely agree with that.
So tell me more about what inspired you to not only do the consultant work, but then to start a podcast.
I love this question. I'm so glad you asked me. My good friend and I, a friend I've had for over 25 years, her name is Paula. She's my co host. And she and I were talking, and we said, boy, every time we meet women out there doing what we're doing, being an entrepreneur, we find so many great nuggets from them. And it's like we do all these different things. Not one of our guests I feel like is the same, and it's our third season now. And we just said, let's start this podcast and really do it to elevate other women. It was something that we said we're not looking for money for it. We're not looking, I mean, sure, sponsors are great, but we really did it just to learn about other women, to meet other women. And then with our networks, we felt like we wanted to share these women with our networks. And that was really the whole reason we wanted to do it. And so, as I mentioned, we're in our third season, and we just recently came off of an in-person women's summit that we had in May. So it was a great time to bring people together as well, bring some women together to meet past guests and meet each other.
That's amazing. Tell me more about the summit. What is the goal of the summit, and is this going to be something that will be recurring in the future?
I always say never. As anyone who's planned events knows, whenever you're planning an in-person event, a lot of logistics goes into it. I would love to say, hey, everything went off without a hitch. It appeared that way, right? And it was a wonderful event. Every single woman who registered and purchased a ticket attended. We
Wow.
had zero no-shows, which I feel like there's always somebody who can't make it. There's always somebody who cancels last minute. Everyone attended. It was a wonderful event. We had two keynote speakers, one on the front end and one on the back end, speaking about finding your purpose and making sure that you're aligning with your values. We also did a women's health and wellness panel where we had a woman that's a holistic health coach. We had a woman that is a sex therapist and pleasure mentor. And we also had a psychotherapist that has had her practice for over 35 years. So it was a great time, and really bringing together a diverse group of women to learn from one another. And who knows? I think next year we're not going to do it, but we'll probably do it every other year.
That's exciting. And I love these opportunities for women to, as you said, and as is in synchrony with your business, to elevate one another. Because once we get up high enough, I mean, the possibilities are endless, and we'll only get there together as a
Yes.
group, helping one another and supporting one another and helping shine a light on one another and give spaces to have these conversations, which you are doing with your podcast. And I just think it's lovely. I enjoyed several of your episodes today leading up to this conversation. So that was really fun. And you two are such warm hosts. So anyone who's interested in learning about, entrepreneurship, certainly something that you cover, and just hearing from interesting women, it's a great, great show to listen to. Now, in addition to your consultant business, working with businesses, and your podcast. You also are a speaker. Tell me about the topics that really inspire you to share the message.
Sure. Thank you for that. And, I think what we've already been talking about is being that empathetic leader. But I like to say without being a doormat, because a lot of times people look at empathy as, okay, I'm empathetic. Every single request that my direct report comes to me with, I need to say yes to because I'm empathetic and I know what they're going through. Or even if I don't know, I'm empathizing. And, I let people know it's okay to have some boundaries when we're talking about empathy, because we don't need to be walked all over just because we're a good person who likes to listen and likes to ask those questions and likes to understand more about our team members. I also love to speak on imposter syndrome. You and I were talking a little bit about the term syndrome before we recorded. Why should people not like that word, Dr. Shafer?
Well, because, we were discussing this before, and I said, I don't know if you'd seen my reel that I did on this, but I like to do these little short form reels for people who can't listen to a 30 to 60-minute talk, right? And I wanted to touch on imposter syndrome. I'm using air quotes for
Yeah.
those listening on Spotify and Apple. So it's not a syndrome, it's not a diagnosis, it's an experience. However, as we said before the show, I have nothing against using it as shorthand, but I just love it when people say, I actually think it's a really great way to get someone's attention to say it's imposter syndrome. Well, no, it isn't, but it's really, really important. And I'm so glad I have your attention. Let's dig into it and figure out how we can work on this so that so many people are not suffering with these thoughts and these doubts about themselves.
Yes, and I completely agree with you. A lot of the research that I've done into imposter phenomenon, if you will, that's a name that Pauline Rose Clance, who's done a lot of work on imposterism or imposter phenomenon, as she likes to call it, said it's not a syndrome, right? Because there's nothing wrong with you. And it's interesting because statistics say that about 75% of people, not women specifically, we a lot of times hear women talk about it more often. It's probably because as women we're more comfortable talking about it.
Mm,
I think for men it's actually more detrimental to talk about it, because then it's like, oh, you don't believe in yourself, what? um,
mm,
but back to imposterism, if you will, or imposter phenomenon. It's not that it's not that anything is wrong with you. It's that a lot of us have these potentially fleeting limiting beliefs that, oh my gosh, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, why are they hiring me, why are they wanting me, they're going to find out I'm not the smart individual that they think I am. And a lot of times people will say to me, oh, is that because the person saying it has low self esteem? And it's not. It's interesting because usually these people are confident individuals. They are very smart. They're well respected in their craft, whatever that may be. But all of a sudden, these limiting beliefs start to creep in. And, one thing I tell audiences, and if I'm working, even with a smaller group, I will tell them, watch your self talk. Because when you start to feel like, oh boy, they're going to figure me out, they're going to figure out that I don't know what I'm talking about, remind yourself how far you've come. A lot of times, because as someone that suffers from imposterism at times, I will say to myself before I go into a big engagement, you're amazing. You know you are the best person for this. They hired you based on all of your qualifications and your past experiences. You're going to kill it. I
I
will
love
actually tell myself that. And it's interesting because that will help lessen those effects of that imposterism that creep in. Another thing that I tell people is to go back and review some good feedback that you received. A lot of times it's,
Mm,
oh, yeah, I did receive that great feedback. I
yep,
am really good at what I do. And that can also help people out, I feel.
exactly. You need that data. There's a starting off point, and then there's a direction. You're going to go one direction or you're going to go another. And you can choose your experience of a moment, even if it's not the best moment, even if you feel underprepared, even if those, I call them little gremlins, the limiting beliefs, if
I
they're
love
kind of
it.
like, because they're not really you, they're in your mind, but they're
Yep.
not necessarily you, right? You might have picked them up somewhere along the way. Maybe it's like a little bit of that childhood still hanging out back there, something someone said one time or a million times, and it's still there. And it still echoes when it gets really dark and quiet. But I love how you discussed how you do what some people may call an affirmation,
Mhm.
because you are doing priming, right? And you don't have to think about this in a psychological term, just literally like primer on a wall. We know if you put the primer on, the next layer is going to stick better, the next layer, the next layer. So that affirmation, that thing you decide that you're going to say to set the tone, if you choose a positive tone, then the next time you have a positive thought, it's going to stick, and it's going to be harder for the negative one too, because you've already decided what direction your thoughts are headed in.
Yep. So
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. I love that. I love the affirmation before. And what do you find when you discuss imposterism with people, or the imposter phenomenon? What do they share with you when you're consulting and you recognize that this is a part of the challenges that this individual is facing, potentially even as joining into that leadership committee, joining into the leadership community, maybe a part of why they're having a hard time interacting with the people they're trying to lead is because they're trying to kind of defend themselves and hide these feelings of imposterism.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly right. A lot of times it's it could be that the leader feels like I kind of worked my way up quickly,
Mm,
and although I was really great at what I did, I don't feel like I have the length of tenure within the role to be considered this vice president or above or director or above. They start looking at how maybe a parent or guardian worked their way up and they had to be in a role for 10 years before they ever got that next promotion. And a lot of the clients I work with are in pretty fast paced environments. And so they're seeing that I started here and then I did a great job and I worked my way up and I worked my way up and I worked my way up. And they start feeling like, but I've actually only been in the workforce for 10 years. And
mm,
now I'm an executive and I don't think I belong here. And so I work with them to realize just because you were really great at what you did doesn't mean you needed to stay down in a level that was not challenging for you. And so I
right.
think, you know, a lot of people do that comparison of, I don't think I deserve this. And so really working with them to uncover, why do you feel that way? What is it that's led you to believe this? And when you look around yourself, are there signs that you can't do this job? A lot of times
Mm,
they're like, well, no.
exactly.
Yes, because you're ready for it. You've been doing it. You weren't promoted on a whim. It was more that you're looking back now and saying, oh my goodness, I'm in my mid 30s. How am I here? My parent wasn't here until they were in their mid 50s. And recognizing that our world has changed and it doesn't mean you're not qualified or ready or great at what you do because you don't have a specific year tenure.
I love that. And I loved how you were phrasing it, because you could feel it coming. You felt the, well, I did a really good job. You felt the but coming, and you just wanted to say, can we stop before the but? Can
Yes.
we stop before? And can we maybe replace the but, the self-deprecation, can we replace it with gratitude? Because that's still humble. You want to be humble. That's wonderful. That's great. That's a great quality, but you don't have to be self-deprecating to be humble. You can
Yes.
say, I worked this place. And as you said, and I'm so grateful that I have been supported and facilitated to expand my skill set and get to this leadership position. And now I'm thinking, how can I pay this forward, right? How can I take this energy, maybe this feeling of, oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm here, maybe this feelings of unworthiness. No, you
Hmm.
are worthy. And if you feel like you didn't get here on your own, you need to elevate other people. Okay, let's focus the energy instead of on self-deprecation. How do I do that?
Yes. And I
Yeah.
love that. I love the idea of also paying that forward, because I think a lot of times as supervisors within an organization, they can tend to get in their own heads of, I'm so worried about how I'm unworthy
Mm,
that I'm not looking at that gratitude piece you brought up. I love how you said that, because I think gratitude is such an equalizer to those feelings of, I don't deserve this, to, wow, someone gave me this opportunity. Someone gave me a chance. They believed in me. They invested in me. And now I'm here. How can I take this feeling of gratitude and apply it to my team members, and making sure I'm building them up, not only with words that affirm them, but also with projects and work and I like to say, and specificity around those words of affirmation, so that they know exactly what it is that they're doing really well. And if you're giving them that constructive, which I say, please, please, feedback is a gift, whether it's constructive or positive, but give them that specificity around, when you did this, this was such a success, and here's why. Or when you did this is what we may want to do differently next time. Giving that specificity, so it's not like, you screwed that up, or hey, you were really great. Either
yeah.
one isn't helpful unless you give that specificity around what they did well, or what they could improve upon next time.
I love that. It's so helpful and so actionable. And, to be really trite about it, and really like boil it down to one little thing. Like, do we like giving constructive feedback? Is it sometimes uncomfortable? Well, if you're coming from a negative place and you're worried about it, yes. But maybe just like as a starting off point in your head, be like, okay, remember that time I had something in my teeth and no one told me, and I went and I gave that speech, and no, everyone was so afraid to tell me that I had this stuff in my teeth. And then 1,000 people saw me with stuff in my teeth. And I really wish someone had been willing to be a
Yes,
little uncomfortable and just like say, like, hey, I'm so sorry you have a little bit of spinach in your teeth. And I would be like, no, don't be sorry. I'm so grateful, right? We can
absolutely.
we can frame feedback in such a way that it actually feels like that. It doesn't have to feel destructive. It can truly be constructive. It's just the framework that we're delivering it in. And it
Yes.
doesn't have to be a detriment. It can really be a gift.
And it is, right? When someone gives you that gift to say, like, hey, I love having you on my team. And because I love having you on the team and I care about you, I need to say where you've had a misstep here. Let's, here's what you did wrong. What do you want to do differently next time? I'm here to support you in what you want to do differently, because you're exactly right. None of us wants to get up on stage with spinach in our teeth or our zipper down. We would much rather that, even though it's embarrassing, have someone tell us before we're in front of more people than just a couple individuals.
Well, I love it. And I love all these, actionable things that you've discussed today about ways that you work with leaders and teams to try to help create a more empathetic leadership board, as well as just a better place to work. Because, these are things that affect all of us. We all are a part of the workforce. We all are a part of human interactions and relationships. And knowing how to communicate more effectively and empathetically with one another is going to help everyone. So this is incredibly important and impactful information. I'm so grateful that you came on the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been wonderful speaking with you and your audience.
Thank you. And please share with us where the audience can reach you if they do want to work with you in the future, or if they want to listen to your podcast.
Absolutely. They can go to LinkedIn. It's Kirsten Ramos Elevate is the way to find me on LinkedIn. You could also go to my website, which is www.elevateperformance.net. And you can also tune in or request to be a guest on The Savvy Session, which is thesavvysession.com.
Excellent. And like I said, I enjoyed several episodes before our meeting today. They are lovely. So, everybody, after you're done listening to this episode, subscribe to her podcast and enjoy. I think it's really motivating. And I do hope you have another summit in the future and that I can attend, because I would love to meet you in person and meet the women that you are helping to elevate, because it's such an important thing for us all to do.
Well, that would be fabulous for you to join us. This may be the thing that tips me over the edge to doing another one. So thank you so much, Dr. Shafer. I appreciate you.
Oh, I love it. And I appreciate you too. And we appreciate you listeners too. If you have any comments or questions for me, you can contact me either in the comment section, or you can head over to www.drshaferstudionova.com and click contact there. Thank you so much for listening. Stay safe and take care. I'll talk to you soon.
Everybody's lonely, but you can hold on to me, and I will try to make it right. Everyone needs something. Let me be that